Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on Morning Line. We're talking just before the show, getting it going. We've got a great program for you. Hope, by the way, you had a good weekend. I'm Nick Beres, and this is, of course, Morning Line on a Monday. And we're going to be talking about real estate as we do once a month with one of the top, if not the very top, real estate agents in the entire state about what's happening market-wise here. And it's funny because he comes in and I badger him about having to find something because my son wants to move back to Nashville and how we go about looking for this and how you find something affordable if you're thinking of selling. We're going to get into all of that this morning. You see the number on the screen with Bernie Gallarani. Good morning to you, Bernie.
How are you?
Thank you for letting me badger you.
Always fun being back.
It's a pleasure.
You're not bad. You say you're badgering me.
It's what you do.
You do realize I'm in the real estate business.
I know.
It's like me saying I'm badgering you to come on the show. I mean, this is what you do.
Look, I'm going to hire him. We're going to go. We're going to find something for Huey on that. How have you been?
I've been good.
Everything good?
Been
good to have you back on.
Thanks.
Usually he comes very prepared, as he always does, and he's got it all in his
I am
pad.
prepared. Yeah, I just didn't give you notes today.
No, I was going to ask you, because you have an idea of what you want to talk about each day. I mean, I've got all kinds of questions, but is there a focus you want today?
Well, I think when we've chatted surfacely on this on other shows about homes and why they don't sell.
Right.
So one of the things that's happening a lot now is homes are expiring.
What do you mean expiring?
So what happens is when a home goes on the market as an active listing, it sits on a market, and when an agent lists that home, it has a contractual expiration date. So for example, if it might be a 90-day or it might be a 180-day, so a 6-month contract
with that agent,
with
and
that particular agent. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So when that agent signs, so if I was to come to your home and we were to list your property, we would start it on a certain day, and then it would have an expiration date.
Then it would sell by that point, and then the contract's void, and then
Correct.
you decide either to re-up with this person or go someplace else.
That's exactly right. And so what's going on is for the last few years, you've seen a lot less of these expires because homes were selling in about a minute, right, starting in 2020.
Right.
Even so, where we came out of 2012, going through to 2020, homes sat on the market less time then than they did, let's say, in 08, 9, 10, 11, 12. Mm-hmm. So what's happened is we've had a gradual increase in property value since about 2012, going through 2020, which was a unicorn, as we call that, right? Something that won't happen again. And then here we are today where homes are now back on the expired list. And so what's happening is we're seeing a lot more properties that are not selling. And so the questions that not only questions that I've been asked within my team, meaning the agents that work with us, but also homeowners is, like, what causes a home to expire? So I want to talk about that today, of what actually causes a home to expire. And so typically what it is it's not being exposed to the right buyer.
Okay.
So the buyer says yes to the property. And why does the buyer say no to the property? And so what we're going to do today is talk a little bit about what causes a buyer to come to the property, what causes a buyer to say no to a property, and then causes that contract to expire.
Now, by the way, when it does expire, what typically happens after things expire? Does the homeowner who's trying to sell it say, hey, it didn't work with this real estate agent, I want to try someone new? I'm just curious. When it expires, what do people normally do? I know you're going to talk about why things expire, but what happens at that point?
Well, believe it or not, you would think that if an agent had a property on the market for 6 months, let's just say, that when that contract comes due and it doesn't sell, that homeowner then seeks another realtor. Maybe is the actual answer, and that is most cases not. A lot of sellers will continue to work with the agent in addition to that time. Why do you think?
Well, I mean, there could be a variety of reasons. I was going to say, it's not always the agent's fault, is it? Or would you say otherwise, that if the home doesn't sell? I mean, can it sometimes just be a difficult situation? Maybe the homeowner just doesn't listen to the agent's advice, and they stick with them. The agent says, it should be lower. No, I want to sell it for this. And insists on staying. I don't know.
Yeah.
So you're asking me why a homeowner would stay with them. It's because it's personal. That they're friends with them and they don't want to let them go, maybe.
Yeah, I think that all of those things are true, what you just said. The agent is really working hard at getting the seller
usually
to
I would say unless you have a bad agent. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I think it's a good question. Okay, and this is what we'll unpack here today, and that is, should a seller stay with the agent? And so here's what I would say first if somebody has a question in that.
Okay.
Usually, and I would just say from the level in which I've seen real estate, an agent doesn't typically have a plan B.
Okay.
And so if Plan A, which is whatever they did to market and expose the property, if Plan A didn't cause the home to sell, then are they going to use a Plan B? And what I would say is not. They're not going to use a Plan B. Let me explain to you why. Usually if a home's on the market for 6 months and it doesn't sell, you would assume that the agent would have used Plan B previous to the expiration date.
Before then, yes.
Okay.
Hey, it's not working. Let's get it going before the contract's
So
up.
the question that I would have for you, Nick, is why doesn't an agent use a Plan B?
Stubborn?
They don't have one.
Oh, okay.
They don't have one.
They did. Why would you not have a plan? Now, Plan B could just be, if it's not selling, let's do something different. Let's lower the price. Could that be a Plan B? Could a Plan B, let's do some more things to make it look more attractive? Let's maybe post some more photos online? I don't know.
Yes.
Aren't those all Plan Bs?
And that's fair, but I guess my question is, if you have a marketing plan that you know causes a home to sell, you then would put in sequence that plan of action, correct?
Okay. Yeah.
And it's almost like, well, if it doesn't sell, then let's try this. And that's really if all the options of selling a home should all be on the table, right?
Right.
You run that from day one.
That is your Plan A.
That is your Plan A.
Gotcha.
That is your Plan A.
I see.
Yeah.
So you're throwing it all there, so you don't have a Plan B.
So
You're
to
doing
me,
everything
is
you
Plan
can.
A didn't work, so let's try Plan B. And my argument with this would be, if this didn't work, we should have known that within a month or two why it didn't work, and then already applied a second plan before the expiration date. As soon as we lose the expiration, as soon as we get to that expiration date, what happens is there's a risk of the agent losing the opportunity to sell the home.
Sure.
So why, as realtors, would we ever put ourselves in that position? However, let's go back to what you said to the start of the show. Most sellers actually keep their realtor in most cases. And the reason why that is because they're comfortable with the relationship. Okay.
They've gotten along. And,
which is fair. And the world that I lived in for many, many years, Nick, was calling a lot of expired listings and talking with them over the years of why their home didn't sell, and then offering to them a second, more aggressive plan to cause the home to sell. And so I lived this world of talking with these folks for many, many years, and came to understand, which is why I wrote all these notes down here, came to understand why so many of them don't sell. Okay, so I want to share that with you today. So in the work that I did for years was calling these expireds, talking with them, finding out what approach the agent that they were using was using, and then figuring out if we could create a different solution. So let's walk through this together. Okay. When you put a home on the market, right, it's all about exposure, 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 right? So that's what I wrote. So
the more people see it, the better chance. Yes.
Right. So let's just say this. There's only so many things a real estate agent can do to sell a house, right? We can list the property, we can take professional photos, we can market it through the MLS system, and then we have additional marketing, things like Zillow, Realtor.com, online pay clicks, advertising, postcards, open houses, things like that, okay? So there's only so many things any realtor can do to get a home sold. So here's the question. Why do some agents sell 80% of what they list, and other agents only sell 25% of what they list? And so I would say the difference in that ratio would be the availability that the agent has to expose the property to more buyers. Okay. So the key here is getting more buyers to see it.
How do you do that then? I mean, because you just said the reasons, the way you do it. I mean, are there secrets that some real estate agents know that others don't? Or is it a matter, as you've said in the past, you're willing to spend a certain amount to have access to things to get better exposure?
Yes to both of those. Okay. One is the amount of money that is spent to expose the property more buyers is key. Yeah. But also knowledge. So I would say for someone young coming in and sitting in your chair, you probably have many years of experience of the do's and the don'ts of the business that you have, right? Of course. No different than in our world. Right. Absolutely. So what we've learned is the things that work and the things that don't work. But more importantly than that is this. The agent walks in a lot of cases, and the first thing they're trying to do, Nick, is do what? What's the first thing they're trying to do?
When they're dealing with trying to get me to sign on, or
yes.
Oh, they're just trying to tell me what I want to hear, and that we're going to get the most money for you. They're
exactly
making
right.
A big pitch.
That's exactly right. So what they're doing is they're making a pitch. So the win is taking the listing, right?
They want you to
getting
sign.
The contract signed. That's correct.
Stay on that note.
Yes.
All right. So we set that up. All right. So now I want to know what the next step is. We got to take a break. and how we lead into this and what you do that's differently than others. Because why? I mean, I want to know the secrets. All right, we'll be right back with Bernie and the secrets to real estate and selling and buying your home. It's good stuff. Yeah, so they got to sell me. Okay. All right, we are back with Bernie Gallarani. Real estate is what we're talking about this morning. And he just set us to the point of what happens when a realtor pitches to me. They want me to sign on the dotted line, okay? And at this point, I've signed up with them, and we're trying to sell the home, and it's not selling. We're getting close to expiring. What's the issue here? Then, where does it go when it ends
let's
up
talk about,
with
because we talked about the agent wanting to take the listing.
Right.
And this is, so any advice that I would have for any realtor is, let's not be super excited about taking the listing. Let's actually be super excited about selling the house, because that's our job. Our job is to serve the client, to sell the property.
Right.
Listing the home is only a process. And I say this to agents when I coach them. When you take a listing, it becomes a liability for you, because now you have a large amount of money invested in getting the house on the market, taking professional photos, drones, staging the property, whatever it might be. And then they take the property and it's overpriced because the seller, which is what we talked about off air, the seller wants a price for the property. The agent agrees to list the home at that price, which is probably overpriced.
Gotcha.
Okay. Most every home will take a price adjustment before it sells. So let's just say 80% of the homes, 8 out of 10, will actually do an adjustment in the price before they get an offer on the property.
adjusting coming down?
Correct.
Really?
So if we're wrong 80% of the time, meaning us agents and or you the seller, if you're wrong 80% of the time, then the listing price that we list it for is usually not the accurate one.
But see, here's the thing. I don't buy that you're ever wrong 80% of the time. My take on you is that you're going to say, well, maybe the seller wants, let's just list it at what I want and see what happens. Maybe we'll get lucky. Okay, and that's why it's up. I mean, you probably know. Look, if I came to you and said, look, price my home at a price you guarantee will sell, you could do that. Now, it might come a little under what it would be market value, if you had to, right? I mean, if you price it, I don't believe you're wrong 80% of the time. There's no way.
I didn't say I was wrong 80%.
Okay.
I'm saying
I
was saying us as realtors, as a group of realtors, we're wrong 80% of the time.
And is that because they kind of give in to the homeowner who insists on selling it for a little more than you know it should be selling for?
Yes, and I think that a lot of realtors are super excited to get the listing versus actually taking one that'll sell.
Okay. Gotcha.
So that's
gotcha.
But here's another issue. So let's just say you list the property, and it doesn't get a lot of showings, for example, or it gets a lot and it's not getting any offers. Here's where the rubber meets the road, though. Now what's going to happen is, let's just assume as the agent, I came in, I said, you know, Nick, we're going to sell this property for $500,000. Okay. And you say, well, I want $550,000, and I say, okay, well, we can try it at $550,000, which is the conversation you and I had off air. Is like, why wouldn't we want to try it a little bit higher, right?
Just give a shot, maybe.
Yeah, and so we give in to that. And then, after, we call this a honeymoon period, it lasts about 4 to 6 weeks. 4 to 6 weeks, you and I like each other really well. You're the seller, I'm the agent, I shoot the pictures, I call you every week, or I call you every other week, or I call you every 3 weeks, whatever it might be. We're feeling really good about each other. Yeah. Until about 4 to 6 weeks into the process, and then you want to know as the seller, what are you doing to sell my house?
Right.
Because it's not selling.
It's not selling.
This is where the challenge comes in. This is the reason homes expire. Because what happens is, I don't have an answer for you other than reduce the price, and you don't want to hear that anymore. Because you're like, oh, great, here we go. You told me you could get me $550,000, and I wanted $550,000. I told you I wasn't going to go less than $550,000. And then what happens is, we get into some level of a confronting conversation. Okay. All right? I, as an agent, not me personally, but I, as an agent, have a hard time creating a confronting conversation and saying, you know, Nick, I really appreciate that you want to get $550,000 for the property. However, the market is telling us this, or the buyers are telling us this. Are people
not rational? Because I'm trying to put myself in the shoes when I've sold before, okay? And I have an idea of what I'd like to get. And then I sit down and I talk with my realtor, and I look at the other listings in the neighborhood. I look at the differences in the homes, and I look at what it's cost. And I take from that, you know, an idea of what my home is worth. And so it's based on some research and some fact there. So I'm not choosing pie in the sky. I mean, can't you just point it out to someone? They know, well, I just don't want to hear it. You said $550,000. Now, maybe that was a mistake to agree to that in the outset. But shouldn't a good realtor just say, okay, Nick, you want $550,000. Let's take a look at what everyone else is selling, and let's take a look at what their home's like compared to yours, and there it is. Can you tell me why you think you're going to get $550,000, you know, more than your neighbor? Who has the exact exact same house that sold for less?
That's actually one of our scripts.
Okay, but I mean, that's,
so
that's a no-brainer, though. So do people not want to hear that? I mean, it's like, what, your home's something special because you live here? Your home's the same as that neighbor's in this subdivision, and you want 50 grand more than he got. Why do you think you're going to get that? We were already showing you what these other homes are selling for. Isn't that rational?
Here's what's really great, is you can have that conversation because your personality is like that, but in the world of real estate, most agents have a difficult time just doing what you just did.
Okay. Do you think I'd be good selling real estate?
I do.
I'd come and learn.
I do think you'd be good at just based on what you just did.
But that's rational.
But you interview people for a living, correct?
Right. Communication is so important.
And you don't have any problems, and you've done this to me on the show, where you don't have any problems asking me really tough questions about my business, right? But a lot of realtors have that problem.
Is it because they're afraid if they say too much that the guy might fire them, the woman might fire them, whatever?
Yeah, or they're not in rapport and they're not liked, because we all want to be liked,
Just
correct?
gotta be yourself, man.
I appreciate that, but most realtors like to be liked. That's super important to a realtor.
To be liked, I guess.
Yeah. So when you and I then get to this 4 to 6 week process, and it's not selling, and then you're challenging me as an agent why the home's not selling, I then have to come up with some pretty interesting, compelling answers, and because I don't really have the right answer to give you other than the price, here comes our problem. Okay? So these are the reasons why an agent expires a listing, is because they don't want to have this conversation. So then what happens when I know that I got to call you every week or every other week, and all of a sudden I don't have a solution to the problem? Then what happens, do you think?
Well, it gets more tense, right? I mean, you're not getting anywhere, right? You're talking about calling me and
I'm an agent. I'm calling you
week after week, and we're getting close to the point where it's going to expire.
Yeah.
I'm just saying
not even expire though, Nick. Let's just say that we're on the market for 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
We have a 6-month agreement.
Oh, 6 months. Okay.
And then all of a sudden, after about 6 weeks, you're not happy with me because I'm not causing the home to sell. I'm not really getting anywhere with you because you don't want to adjust the price. Because remember, and I want all the listeners to hear this, when you live in a home for 20 years and you've raised your family, and you've invested your money, and you've worked really hard, and you've improved the property, it is not uncommon for that seller to believe that their home is worth more than what we're going to say.
Personal.
It's personal.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah. And I wrote this down. It's down here at the bottom of my notes, but I'll share this with you. This was something I used to use years ago, and it says, your home is not worth. So I'll put this down. Your home is not worth what you need out of it.
What you need out of it.
What you need out of it. So, for example, you're buying another home, and you have $200,000 of equity in your home based on what you believe you have, and you need that $200,000 to put down on your new home, and you say to me, hey, Bernie, I need to sell it for $550 instead of $475 because I need $200,000.
Gotcha.
Okay, so it's not what you need out of it.
Right.
Your home is not worth what the last appraisal said it's worth. So an appraisal is hodgepodge. So a lot of folks will actually believe that the appraisal is the be-all to the value. That is not true. I can give you a couple of different examples of where that happened. But if an appraisal comes in, one appraiser can give you a $500,000 appraisal, one can give you a $550,000 appraisal, one can give you a $475,000. So one thing we know is that the appraisal it's just a number, and every appraiser is going to have a different thought. Number 3, it's not worth what the tax assessor says your house is worth.
I knew you were going to bring that up, and I know that. It's not going to be worth that.
It's not worth that.
Well, I'd say it should be worth more than what the tax assessor says.
Well, it depends on who you're talking to. I just had a call from a really good friend of mine last week, or actually a text, and it said, hey, the tax assessor has assessed my property for this. Is this accurate? And I said, well, and I've been to his home, and I said, actually, that is in line. And he says, wow, I didn't realize how much they had gone up, right? And I said, absolutely, that's probably in line with the value of what I see.
He has to pay more property tax.
That's why he's arguing it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So here's what's interesting, though. I love this. We'll all argue our tax assessment.
Yeah. No, it's not worth that much, but we always want the appraisal to be. Isn't
that funny?
That's exactly right, but it makes sense because it's taxes. All right.
And it's not worth what your neighbor says it's worth. So a lot of times we'll get phone calls where the house will go on the market, the sign goes in, the agent's ready to go, and they get a phone call from the seller. Wait a second, before you put that thing live on the market, I was talking to my neighbors, and they think that I'm putting my house up for to less money.
That literally happened to me with one of my neighbors saying that. I just didn't listen to him. Whatever. Okay, the home's worth whatever someone will pay you for it.
Well, and so I wrote that one down too. So I want everyone to hear this too. The value of your home is based only on what a buyer is willing to pay you for it. And if you have a home on the market, because here's what we'll hear as realtors.
Oh, by the way, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Just going back to that neighbor thing, because I pointed out that the reason neighbors want that is because they want all the homes around them to sell for more, so that their home's worth more.
Of course.
But they don't know what the heck they're talking about. But go on.
That's exactly right. But sometimes, a lot of times, that's a big influence on the seller when they hear their neighbor saying, "Oh gosh, and I can't believe you would choose that realtor." Now what happens is really fun and interesting. Why don't you use my cousin? She's a realtor, and she would list it or he would list it for more money, or hey, I know someone who's a realtor, and so it's a very interesting conversation when you're dealing with. There's 14,000 licensed realtors in just Nashville alone.
Yeah.
So when you look at this little Middle Tennessee area with 14,000 licensed realtors, your mother, your brother, your aunt, your uncle, everybody's a realtor.
Yep.
It doesn't mean that they're all good at their job. Everyone starts somewhere, right? But when you're selling a $500,000 or $1 million property, don't you want to have somebody that actually knows what they're doing at a high level so they can make you the most money possible?
When you just talked about 14,000 realtors in this area, you're right. I know of people that got their real estate license. They tried it for a bit and they kind of backed off now, and then they're doing something else, but they have the license and they know that maybe if a house comes along they can sell it and make a quick money on that. And I'm just thinking, your home is your most valuable investment in most cases, I would imagine. And so the last thing I want to do if I'm selling my home is hiring someone who does real estate part-time and is bartending and had tried real estate but kept the license and is going to keep bartending and then try to sell my house on the side. And people do that, like you said, oh, it's a neighbor's friend or it's my aunt or whatever, and they can sell a house and make some money right there selling one house. They can do all right. Right, so what you're saying is, and it's obvious to me, if I'm going to hire someone to sell my house, that's the last person I'm going to hire. And they may be very nice, and they may be great bartenders. But if they're doing it part-time, I don't want to go that way. And by the way, would I pay them about as much as I would pay one of your realtors when the home sold? Is it a lot more expensive to go with you?
No, it's the same.
Then why on earth would you not go with someone who does it full-time for a company that sells hundreds of houses every year?
I think that is such the right question to ask, and here's what it is you typically don't hire the most educated, most experienced realtor. Most people hire the one they feel the most comfortable with in a personal relationship.
Well, bedside manner, comfortable, calling around, and I can understand that. I think I've probably done that myself. I mean, that's human nature. But you really need to understand them beyond that. I mean, you can get to know whoever it is you call. Usually, look, most people, do they go to a realtor based on a referral, someone they've run into? They don't cold call from the phone book. People that are going to hire you are going to see you on this show and decide, Bernie knows what he's talking about, I'm going to go to him. They see your ads on TV, and that gets their attention, and they make the call. But then they're going to get a relationship with whoever you set them up with, right?
Correct. Yeah. Well, I mean, they feel comfortable with the things that they're saying to them. They feel comfortable because it came from a referral, and referrals are always the best, right? I mean, if you get a referral from someone, it's great. We love that, and we get blessed enough that we get opportunities to do that all the time. Which when they don't know you, even though you might be experienced, that they have the biggest struggle, the biggest apprehension. And what's really interesting, and you'll find this to probably be the most interesting, they will choose a realtor because they know them and they won't really check their credentials. But I'll tell you, if their home comes off the market and it expires, they're now interviewing 3 agents or 4 agents, and they're being very critical on all those marketing plans because they've just been burned or unsuccessful by this other realtor. So what they didn't do the first time, they're super hypersensitive the second time. And I love that. And I think everybody who chooses to sell their home, and we talked about this, I think, on the last show we did last month, about interviewing more than one agent for the job, right? Interviewing 2 or 3 agents for the job of getting your home sold. I believe that every seller should interview 2 or 3 people as a minimum before they sell their home, because most realtors are very low producing people normally. All right, we said that 90% of all the agents fail out of the business within 18 to 24 months. Most, 90%. Out of the ones that don't fail out of the business, the per person productivity is very low, about 4 homes a year. So when you look at that, to find an agent who sells 10 or 12 homes a year, that's actually a top agent who sells 10 or 12 homes a year. That's maybe 1 home at best per month, right? Some agents that are better are selling 15 to 20 homes a year, and they're in the top 5% of all agents in the country if you're selling 15 to 20 homes a year. So it's very hard to find an agent with a high level of experience at selling homes. This is your biggest asset.
The really good ones that sell that many, and we have to go to the break, is it sometimes hard to get them? If they're too busy, they won't take on new homes to sell? Or is that something that doesn't happen?
That doesn't happen.
I didn't think so. All right, we'll take a break. We'll be back with more with Bernie right after this. What an education. Back on Morning Line. Thanks for joining us. Bernie Gallarani is with us, talking real estate and what it takes to choose and keep a realtor. You said, I think a lot of people, can think about it. When they sell a home, how many times in your life do you sell a home, really, when you think about it? Some people maybe move a lot and they do a lot. But, I mean, most of us maybe 2-3 times, if that's it. Buying and selling a home. So it's experience, but a lot of us don't have a ton of experience choosing a realtor because it only happens once in a blue moon. So I guess if you have a bad experience, your idea is interview as many as you can, but you didn't say, all right, if you're interviewing 2 or 3 when you're going to hire someone to help you sell a home, what are the key questions you ask again? What is it? How do you know whether or not they have a plan B? Or should they have a plan B?
Well, I don't think they should have a plan B. I think plan A should.
You want to be satisfied with it? You don't go in with a plan B then. You have a plan A that you believe through experience will work for this home.
Well, first of all, you always have to expose the home to the maximum amount, and that would be something that every seller should.
So couldn't someone say, okay, the home's not selling for the price I've asked. You said we're going to get the ask, and you keep telling me, Nick, you have to lower your price. How about this? You're not out there pounding the bricks. You're not getting my home in front of enough eyes right now. Maybe that's the problem. It's not the price. Someone could say that. And maybe they'd be right if they didn't have the access to the media the way you do.
Yeah. Well, no, I think that's what they do say. I just had a conversation with somebody who has a really beautiful couple $1 million home here in town, and it's sat on the market for about 3 weeks, and we've made an adjustment and improvement in that price, and it's caused some more activity, which is really great. And we spoke about it, the seller and I, on Friday. And here's the solution: keep doing what we're doing and exposing the property to all the buyers, right? Which is what we're doing. We're watching all the internet activity go on inside the property. We've had it 3 weeks. If we make another small adjustment in the price, it's because we're starting to see the showings uptick as we've adjusted the price. So we need to make another small adjustment on that price, and we'll cause the home to sell. And this was the conversation that I actually had with them on Friday. And I said, listen, here's where we're at. This is where we started. This is the activity. We can see this online. This is how many showings we've had on the property. This is our feedback. This is what the buyers are saying about the home. I gave them a solution. So here's where I think it's important, and I'll give you this particular person's issue, okay? They live in a beautiful 6,000 square foot house. Okay. Unbelievable. Yeah. Okay. Built in 2016.
Big house. Yep.
Nice house. Big 6,000 square foot house. And their backyard is the size of a postage stamp. Okay. And the challenge with that particular house in comparison to some other homes is that it has the smallest backyard for the largest home. Okay. Typically, who buys a 6,000 square foot home is what kind of person?
With a bigger family. Yeah, they have more people, dogs, whatever. I mean, it's that much home, you have several people living there, so you want more backyard.
That's exactly right. And so what's happening is the conversation or the complaints that we're getting, or the feedback, maybe is a better one, the feedback that we're getting says that the backyard is too small for little Johnny.
What do you do about that?
It's a condition problem, right? So you have
You can't expand the backyard anyway.
No, you're not. That's what we call a condition issue. We can't control that in any way or any manner.
Did they build the house?
They did not. They bought it as a second home.
Because when it was built, someone looked at it and they built it this way with a small backyard.
Well, that's just the size of the lot. They built a lot of the other homes in there are around 3,000 square feet, where this one's a 6,000.
Yeah, it's a big, beautiful house, but it took up more space. Okay.
Took up more space, and the challenge that they have now is, well, what do? I can't change the backyard, as you just mentioned. Well, we have 2 options in this case, right? we know we're exposing it to the people because we can read the data, and then we can show you what is being done. The second thing, though, is because we can't change the backyard, we do one of two things. One is we wait for a buyer like them because they purchased it. That could take 40 or 50 showings until somebody shows up and says that I want that particular property. Or we can make an improvement on that price, make it more attractive to more buyers, to open it up to more buyers, and then allow more buyers to come in quickly and think that it's a better value than some of the other ones. So, for example, if they're selling very similar to a 3,000 or 4,000 square foot house and they're a 6,000, then the price per square foot drops to attract the right kind of buyer.
The problem with that, though, is I still think there's going to be people, even if you drop the price, if they're looking for a home like that, unless it's just an absurd price, no backyard is, it kills the deal. It kills the deal. I mean, I don't know. If I need a backyard because I have a family and dogs, and as much as I love this home, I don't care how much you lower it. So I'm just saying you're going to have to find someone that doesn't care about the backyard.
That's exactly right. Because I don't
think someone who cares about the backyard is going to say, oh, you know what, I think I'll consider buying this now that the price has come down, unless it's absurd. Right?
It's an interesting challenge.
I would think you're going to have to find someone who really appreciates this wonderful home and doesn't have a high, I mean, they look at it more like, well, great, I don't have to mow a lawn. Now, that's kind of an asset. You don't have to worry about maintenance of a backyard and the grass and all that.
So this particular family who owns the property, it's a second home. They don't have little kids. Their kids are all older. The house is absolutely beautiful, and there is going to be a buyer like that out there for this piece of property. This is where exposing the property makes the most sense, because if you're not really getting it out there to see have a lot of people see it, then what's happening is they're trickling in, and the chance of selling it's pretty slim. So exposing it the right way and making sure that a lot of buyers, and things like you mentioned it, things like this show, all of our TV commercials, our radio commercials, all the endorsements that we have and that we do, that drives in traffic, which is why we do it, right? It drives in business to our company. And so what happens is we have people on the phones all day long answering those phone calls when they come in, and we can place those people in properties like this. This is where the exposure side is super important. But I do agree with you. It's a challenging uphill battle that sellers have, and I want people who are watching to pay attention. Just because you love the property and just because you've justified the situation doesn't mean that's what the majority of the people are looking for. Do you follow? And so when we have a small percentage of our buyers who are willing to buy a big house with a small backyard, we have a small percentage. We have to get a large amount of people in the property in order to find those few people.
So that's what you're doing now. That's the cycle. You're getting it out there, and you feel confident they'll come about because it's a wonderful looking home.
Oh, it's going to sell. I'm not concerned at all. It won't sell. I see. This is the difference. Is I feel 100% sure the home's going to sell. Nick, here's the fun part. And I don't care who anybody uses, but just choose an agent who has had a lot of experience selling in different situations, because some agent might just say, well, I don't know what else to do. You have a small backyard. And a seller doesn't want to hear that.
No.
A seller wants to hear a solution to the problem.
And that comes with experience. So you talk about all these issues that come up for sellers. At what point do some of these sellers decide that it's just not worth the effort and they go with the automatic buy program?
Oh, the cash program.
Cash program. Now, again, the main reason you do it the other way is you can make more money if you do it the way we were just talking about, right?
The seller can make more money, yes.
Yeah, that's why. Otherwise, why wouldn't everyone go with the cash program?
Well, they would. Listen, it's fun. If there's other agents in town that market even bigger than I do in regards to the guaranteed sale.
Oh, I know. That's just the service you guys provide.
It's a service we provide, right? But I will say to any seller, if you really, and I love the commercials that I hear from some of these, like, hey, this is so-and-so, and they bought from, they sold their house to so-and-so, and it was really great and easy. It's going to cost the seller money, and you are leaving money on the table. If you don't care about leaving money on the table and you want a quick thing, then these programs are for you. If you really want to cash out and go, this is perfect. 14 days, you get your money, and you're gone, right?
But you're getting a lot less. And for some people, depending on where they are, that works. But in general, no. If you want to make the money and get your...
And usually it doesn't serve the seller the best.
Right. I mean, come on, that goes without saying. I mean,
however, you got to offer the service, because there are people, and those are people we've worked with in the past also. There are people that say this works best for my situation. Perfect. They're not doing any inspections. I'm sorry, they're not doing any repairs. They're not having showings on their home. Basically, the inspection is just to make sure the house isn't caving in. They don't have to do repairs on that property. They sign the contract. 14 days later, they get a check. They don't have to worry about it, and that's the service we provide.
If you don't mind, can I ask you about your trip to New York?
Sure.
All right, so tell me about who you met with and why you went. And this is just this past week. He was showing me a picture, and I'm like, kind of, that's cool.
Yeah.
And he went out to some nice restaurants while he was there, I can tell you that much.
Yeah, so every year we get together at different parts of the country, and we mastermind with the top agents.
See, that's interesting. Who you bring you and some of your other realtors?
There's some other realtors there, and so Barbara was up there. Barbara Corcoran was there.
Yeah, you seen the ads?
Lots of different very high profile people were in the room. Ryan Serhan from Selling New York, who a lot of people know. We had dinner with him on Monday night, and so we sit down and we brainstorm where the market's going, how we feel.
Nationally? Because, I mean, how does it work when you're talking with him and some of these people that are in New York? It's a different market there than Nashville, right? I mean, or are there some broad-based trends that you're taking a look at nationally? Is that what
Yes, and what we're looking at is the state of the economy, interest rates, challenges there. We have a new lawsuit which I'm going to go through next month. This is going to be probably one of the biggest shows.
You told me about that. Okay. We're going to have to do that. In fact, I want to do a story. We're going to roll a clean feed on that and do a story in the newscast on that too. When that comes up.
So we'll do that next month, and I'm going to walk through the NAR settlement deal
and what that means.
What that means, and I think there's a lot of confusion for sellers and for buyers of what this all means. So we were all together with CEOs. I was with the CEO of iHeartRadio, the CEO of EXP. We were with some very big, influential people in New York, brainstorming where we see our industry going and how we can serve our clients in this. So this is going to be probably our biggest show that we'll do next month, is talking about there's some really interesting misconception that through the new NAR agreement that is now in.
And we'll have to explain to people what that is. Yeah, it's going to affect how you buy and sell homes for sure.
It's going to affect how you buy or sell homes. It's going to affect the buyers, agents. It's going to affect it's actually going to affect the listing agents too. I believe this. Sellers believe that they're not going to have to participate in buyers' commissions, which is what they're hearing the lawsuit was about. It was not about that.
Okay, we'll take a break. Yeah. We have our final segment coming back, but we're going to get into a lot of that next month.
Yeah,
we'll be right back with Bernie right after this. All right, final segment this morning with Bernie Gallarani. What should we touch on? How do we want to wrap this up with what we were talking about with regard to agents, expiring contracts, which I just can't believe there's that many expiring contracts in the Nashville area, the way properties still sell like hotcakes.
So there's a little contradiction in this conversation. One is inventory is really low, and the reason why it's low is because people got into 3.5% interest rates.
Right. So
Okay. Two, what we're seeing is an uptick in refinancing properties because there's so much cash in it. People are in credit card debt.
But interest rates are up, so people are refinancing.
Well, because the credit card, because what people don't understand is credit card payments are much higher than mortgage payments.
Yes.
So if they're spending money on credit cards and they have so they're starting to refinance. This is a whole other. That's opening
can doors. I didn't know that. Holy cow.
So what's going on is, as we know, typically most people are not probably overly responsible with all their finances, and so what they do is they have a couple $100,000 sitting in a house, and they're like, let's remodel, let's pay for the kids' college education, right? They have to, in order to extract that money out of that property, they have to take the money out through a banking institution, most likely.
So you're talking about taking out home equity loans?
Yes. So what's happening is right now people are holding on to this 3.5. Okay. Number two is the ones that have to sell. That's why they're selling a 3.5 and moving into a new property. So they're either moving on job transfers or they want a bigger house and they don't care about the interest rate. All that being said, though, inventory is low in comparison to where we typically are at this time of the year, but yet we have the highest supply of inventory, meaning what we call an absorption rate. So an absorption rate is how many homes are selling every month versus how many homes are actively on the market. In 2021 and 2022, we had 15-day, 18-day supply of inventory. In 24, we have a 4-month supply of inventory. So even though we say inventory of supply is high, it's really low in comparison to other years.
Okay.
The reason why the supply is high is because the interest rates are high. And when the interest rates are high, the buyers are apprehensive. When the buyers are apprehensive, you get fewer showings on your home. When you get fewer showings on your home doesn't sell as quickly. When your home doesn't sell as quickly and your agent doesn't communicate with you that, your home expires.
Take a quick call from Matt. We're going to take many calls, but let's squeeze one in. Is that okay with you?
Yep.
Matt. Good morning, Matt.
Hey, good morning.
Hey, go ahead.
I got a solution for your big house with a small backyard. You need to swap it with your new listing on my street that's small house with enormous backyard.
That's a perfect solution.
That might just work, right? You have one like that on your street right now for sale?
It's got a Bernie sign in front of it.
I love it.
Hey, this got me to, I just Googled in the address of my neighbor's house. It's got your sign on it.
Yeah.
Why is it that when and most people I'm sure look at how they go by the address first. Your ad is not with the house anywhere on the, mobile Google search. And you've had to look into this. How much money does Google want for you to be able to match your listing up close to the top of a Google search? Of course it's Zillow at the top, but then it's a lot of other agents that make it look like they've got the listing on your house. You might not care, but I don't know. I was just curious about. It never matches up with the house that's for sale. The agency listing on Google.
Yeah, the answer to that, I'll make an easy answer here, is we all have, most agents will just advertise on what they call a pay-click system.
Right.
We do also, so it's no different there. But where we win this game is because so many buyers will go online. Let's just say we'll use Zillow as an example. They'll go online to Zillow. And so we are actually paying for that space where other agents aren't paying for it. So what he just mentioned is actually true, that you buy space, really, is what happens. So we buy space. Zillow is like the top search engine site in the country, right? A lot of people go to Zillow to search for homes. So not only that, but also PPC clicks, which is where he said other agents show up. Why those two things aren't is because they probably are on the Zillow site.
Okay.
So if you go to the Zillow site, they're lined up. Like a lot of times if you see a house listed on Zillow and you click on that listing, it'll actually show that I'm the listing agent. I'm not. I just buy that space, and that's really what he's mentioning.
Interesting. It's interesting how people notice things like that, right? And you've got a listing on his street with a tiny house and a big yard.
Yeah. Well, I think it was Matt, right? I think I love that because unfortunately, Matt, these particular sellers have already bought a home in Florida, so that's where they're moving to. But I love the house swap idea.
Yeah, not a bad idea. All right, so back to before we took that phone call, just then wrapping it up. Then the idea is if the contract, because that's what you started with, does expire after that time. You said most people tend to just stay with it, but your recommendation would be, look, if it's expired, you want to look around maybe at someone else, because obviously the first time around it didn't work. Is that the idea?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, I'm going to stick with the thing I've been sitting on the whole time. Interview a few agents.
Okay, I mean,
here's my suggestion. If they have an agent and the house isn't selling, if they want to keep the agent, that's fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If maybe the agent has a plan B and it works really well. I would just suggest interviewing more than just that one, to get other agents' opinions, just to line up what it is the other agents are saying so they can talk with the agent that they've chosen to work with. And just seeing that those kinds of marketing ideas are options. It really just comes down to exposure and experience, right? Is how much experience do you have to expose the property at the highest level? And if you have an agent you love, perfectly fine, keep that agent. But interview a few more just to make sure that what your agent that you have is telling you is in line with some of the top agents and what they're doing. That's
what you got to do. But experience but the average Joe, until I talk to someone like you, I mean, and I think I'm a smart guy for the most part, but I mean, we go with referrals. We've had an agent that we have used in the past that I think did well for us. You know, I mean, we sold the house. Yeah. Of course, it was in a hot time anyway. There's times when the market's such that regardless of the type of agent, the house is going to, I mean, I could probably sell it myself sometimes, right?
Yeah, I mean, if the market, it's not real tough to sell a house when there's over demand of buyers and not enough listings.
Right.
But now we're switched the other way. We have an over high level of inventory and the low demand in the market. And, you know, here's what I say to anybody who's hesitating to buy. Purchase a home and refinance it if the rates go down. My guess is the rates aren't going to go down. So what happens is we're missing out on an opportunity for home ownership, and it's better than renting. So if we call this thing called date the rate.
Yep.
It means that you just date the rate. If the rate goes down, refinance it for a few $1,000s. You can refinance a loan. It's much better to do that than it is to rent.
Absolutely, and that's one thing I came away with, and that's what we're doing with my son, as you said, as opposed to rent. There are people that live in beautiful homes, not modest ones, that are paying less than $200 a month on their mortgage, okay? Just nice little comfortable small home. Yeah. And there are people right now renting apartments in, say, Providence in Wilson County, 2-bedroom, in some complex for $2,500 a month. Buy a house.
Yes.
That's money out the door. Just get that initial down payment. You can buy points down, as you said. Get in home ownership, if you can find the house, is worth it. So many people think they can't afford it, never will be able to. You say you can.
Here's what's interesting, and I'll just say this. Now, this is nationwide. Some cities are more hot than others, so I'll just say this is nationwide. Yeah. You will double the value of your property typically every 10 years.
Yeah.
So if you buy a $500,000 home today, or let's say you buy a $300,000 home today, that's going to be a $600,000 property in 10 years. To put $600,000 in your retirement portfolio over 10 years by just paying the same as you would be by renting, it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it doesn't. Bernie, you're the best.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you coming out. Look forward to next month.
Yes.
It'll be a good show.
Yeah.
Have a good one. We'll take a break. Programming note right after this.